Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose, and Xbox made a very interesting announcement today that seems to be getting some pushback online. And I think, yes, there is some merit to that, but at the same time, this is still a good indication for not only today's news, but also for the future of the Xbox business as well. So make sure to stay tuned for all of that. And then we'll also talk about another update to the Switch 2 game keycard situation, because a new wrinkle popped up online, or at least according to one third-party publisher. Before we get started, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go and get right into things, though, starting off with a review roundup. Yeah, it's been a very busy week, both in terms of new announcements and also for new game releases as well. Of course, there was Silent Hill F, which released yesterday. I hope everybody's enjoying that one. We also got reviews for Ghost of Yotei. It's doing very good with an 87 overall score. But there's two other games that I want to talk about. One being the now highest rated game of the entire year, being none other than Hades 2. Now, I don't think that this should necessarily come as a huge surprise, just considering, the first Hades was already an all-time great as is. I mean, to this day, it is still viewed as the pinnacle of roguelike experiences, not only for how it handles its progression system with each attempt to reach the top, but also in how it handles its narratives and its characters. It really does have a fantastic story. Well, the thing is that Hades 2 is actually being described as maybe even a better game than Hades. Yeah, it currently has a 94 overall score on Metacritic, and I've already heard various reviewers claim that it's an improvement in almost every imaginable way. So, I'd say if you like roguelikes, or, really, if you just like Hades, then this seems to be a must-buy experience. Now, that's not quite all, though, because Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles also got some reviews, and it currently has an 88 overall score. So the all-time classic seems to have lived the test of time. It's, still a masterpiece after all of these years. And matter of fact, it actually improved upon the original experience because it does offer some quality of life improvements, most importantly, in my opinion, being the new voiceover. Yeah, fans have always raved about its rich story. It's a fan favorite in the entire Final Fantasy franchise, which I think that says a lot in its own. But now that it has voiced dialogue, well, now you can truly immerse yourself into its world just that much more. Oh, and speaking of Square Enix, they confirmed that a Final Fantasy VII Remake demo will release on the Switch 2 by the end of this year. Of course, its full release is slated for early 2026, but I think a demo for this game specifically is very nice to see. And the reason I say that is because it's going to give every Switch 2 owner an opportunity to witness a high-end AAA game on the platform at no cost. And this really is an absolutely gorgeous game, and early impressions have already described it as the most impressive Switch 2 game this early in its life cycle. So the fact that everybody will be able to test it out, I think, is fantastic news. And also, it's really just a great game in general. It's really one of my favorite games ever personally, so definitely check it out. Even if you've already played it like myself, again, you can still just test the Switch 2 and see what the console is truly capable of. Also, another very impressive game on the Switch 2 appears to be Resident Evil 9. There was actually a playable demo at the Tokyo Game Show this week, so there's been a lot of hands-on impressions these past 24 hours, and it honestly looks, yes, very, very good. So good, in fact, that some people have come away extremely surprised, though I'm going to have to disagree with that part, or at least just a bit, because as I've been saying on the channel for a very long time, the modern Resident Evil games are very, very well optimized. They already look and run great on last generation consoles. And well, the Switch 2 is often compared to the PlayStation 4, but it also has things like DLSS. So I'm really not all that surprised that it looks and feels great on the Switch 2, though I have heard some people claim that it's running at 60 FPS. Now, that would surprise me a bit, but I'm also not necessarily convinced that those reports are actually true, or at at least just yet. I mean, I also remember people saying similar things about Final Fantasy VII Remake on the Switch 2 after Gamescom, and that actually turned out to be false, so I'm going to go ahead and take a wait-and-see approach on this one. I mean, again, there are videos online of it running, and it really does look great from a visual perspective, but it's also kind of hard to decipher its exact frame rate from a camera feed on YouTube. Either which way, though, this really is the future for the Switch 2. It's going to get a lot more third-party support this generation, and at times, it's going to surprise fans by just how truly capable it actually is. I mean, people still aren't used to seeing these type of experiences on a handheld console and actually, look fairly good. All right, so since we're talking about handhelds, let's go and get into the big story of the day, and that's actually about the Xbox ROG Ally. Yeah, they recently confirmed its price, which is $600 for the base model, and then $1,000 for the upgraded Xbox ROG Ally X. Now, obviously, there is some sticker shock with all of this because the home console fan base really are not used to these type of prices, although that they're starting to get a little bit more used to it now with the prices just keep going up and up and up. It's getting ridiculous by this point. But honestly, this does fit in line with this type of technology. PC gaming handhelds do tend to run on the higher side of things, and in fact, I mean, just for comparison's sake here, the Lenovo Legion Go 2, which also uses the same Ryzen Z2 Extreme processor, goes for $1,300 plus. So when you compare the Xbox ROG Ally to the competition, this really isn't a terrible price. I mean, you can even make an argument that it's a pretty decent price considering the base model being $600, fits right in line with the Steam Deck, and then the premium option is still cheaper than the Lenovo Legion Go 2, being really, I'd say, one of its biggest competitors. So again, I get it. These are very pricey devices, which is, one of the reasons that they are still a bit niche, but this is kind of the expected range for PC gaming handhelds. Now, the big news here, though, isn't just the price, but also the Xbox announced that its pre-orders have already sold out on the Xbox Store worldwide, which, on one side, that sounds like fantastic news for Xbox. I mean, sure, you can ask, well, what if they had an extremely limited amount of inventory? And I'd say that's a great point, but at the same time, what this also tells us is that it has at the very least met Xbox's expectations for their very own storefront. The fact that it sold out this fast shows that it exceeded their expectations on their own storefront, and that at the very least is good news, not only for this device, but also for the future of Xbox handhelds. Previous reports did claim that Xbox was originally working on their own first-party handheld, not just with Asus, but their very own handheld internally, but they put that plan on hold to work on the Xbox ROG Ally and the handheld Windows experience. But if this console succeeds, then that very well could convince Microsoft to do more in the handheld space going forward. However, with all that in mind, even though the Xbox ROG Ally sold out on the Xbox Store, I'd also say the way they made their announcement is a little bit misleading in the sense that it's not really sold out everywhere. I have heard about multiple stores selling out, but you can still pre-order one of these over at Best Buy, which, if I were to guess, is probably the most popular place to buy it. That's actually where I bought the original ROG Ally years ago, and they had a ton of them back then. So my prediction is that they'll probably be the lead retailer for the Xbox Ally once again. Now, if they do sell out, though, scalpers are already trying to make bank on these things. I mean, if you look over on eBay, they're listing these things for $1,600 to even $2,000 plus, which is absolutely crazy. I mean, seriously, do not buy one of these from a scalper. I mean, sadly, I've already seen 2 purchase listings. I wish I could warn those people ahead of time, but what I'll say here is that if you are on the fence for the Xbox ROG Ally, then maybe pre-order one on Best Buy just in case. I mean, you can always cancel if you decide you don't want it before it releases, but I mean, I'm not really expecting these things to be overly difficult to find. The original ROG Ally wasn't overly difficult to come by either, and unless this is a more limited release or if there's just an insane amount of hype that is just completely unexpected, then I don't think it's going to be too difficult to get it as time goes on. In the meantime, though, it will release on October 16th, so if you are interested, head over to Best Buy right now. All right, now one last thing before we go, though. The Switch 2 game keycard situation took an unexpected turn because Square Enix spoke out on the situation, and they claimed that the reason third-party publishers are using keycards aren't just because of the price or because of the limited amount of space for specific AAA games. Instead, the Final Fantasy VII Remake director said that perhaps the biggest issue for developers is, certainly for people like us who are developing high-end HD games, is the loading speed. Because if you compare that to an SSD drive and the speed you get from that when loading, it's inferior. So that's really the bigger problem when it comes to developing games, high-end games for the Switch 2, and what's possible with it. And okay, I think he makes a fair point for at least some games. But I think most gamers that actually cares about this situation somewhat already understood that. I mean, maybe not necessarily with the slower speed part, that's actually new information. But of course, there are some games that might not necessarily fit on 64GB cartridges. So yeah, there might be a few situations when a developer has to use a keycard because they just can't fit on a cartridge otherwise. Keycards hold a place in the market when the time is right, but the complaint that I've often seen from fans is, when a small game is on a keycard. Games like Bravely Default HD as one such example, which ironically is a Square Enix title. So that's actually a perfect example in this case, and it's also exclusive to the Switch 2, which kind of ruins his entire point. I mean, Bravely Default HD being on a game keycard was never because of its size, and it definitely wasn't because the cartridge had slower load times. Instead, it had everything to do with the price for these cartridges. And to be fair, I don't blame third-party developers for this entire situation. It's entirely Nintendo's fault for not being better prepared, which I think is absolutely ridiculous, since they just came off their longest generation ever. You would think they would have been better prepared, but however, if speed is a problem for some games, then there is kind of a solution to that issue as well, which we already see on Xbox and on PlayStation. Game installs from the disc, or in this case, game installs from the cartridge. Now, if you don't know how this works, the disc itself on things like the PlayStation 5 has all the data included, but you still need to install everything on your console. Now, admittedly, that's going to take up more space than what you're used to seeing on a Nintendo platform, but that really is the solution to this entire problem when developers do face this specific issue, which currently I don't even believe is a major problem this early on, outside of maybe a few select games like Final Fantasy VII Remake. Again, I think the main issue is pretty clear here, and that's the high price for these cartridges. Third-party developers don't want to pay that extra cost, and rightfully so, because it eats into their profit margin. So in most cases, not all cases, but in most, I think that's the main issue, and that's why we've already seen a few Switch 2 games come in at a higher price tag than they would have otherwise. Let me know what you think about this situation, though. Do you agree with Square Enix or not? Anyways, though, that's going to be this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.